I had to do a lot of searching in my own heart as I was working through the doctrine of the new birth again. And I had to ask myself the question, are there people who have sat under my preaching ministry who have not heard a clear offer of Christ and a clear acknowledgement of their need to be born again? And that's sobering to think about as a preacher. I think that in our circles, there's also a reaction against a superficial understanding of being born again. I mean, there was a time in the American church context where being born again was a kind of popular way to label yourself. And it's not so much that way anymore, but the problem with that was that's good biblical language. Jesus says you must be born again. Unless a man be born again, he cannot enter the kingdom of God. It's good biblical language that we need to recover. But it was understood very superficially. It was understood in a kind of decisional way. So what being born again meant was having a momentary experience of being emotionally affected by the reality of Christ's death and resurrection, or something like that. And so in the Reformed world, I think many have reacted against that and have, in a sense, thrown out the baby with the bathwater and said, because it's understood superficially, therefore we want to, because we disagree with that understanding, we're going to ignore that terminology. And that is a grave mistake, which leads to all kinds of other grave mistakes. But it's a grave mistake, not least because Jesus couldn't be clearer that you must be born again. And the Bible couldn't be clearer. In the Old Testament, much of the Old Testament, there's a kind of thread running through the Old Testament that what people need is inward heart transformation. What people need is a circumcision of the heart, or a heart of flesh replacing their heart of stone, and God's Spirit to work to change them internally. That's not just a New Testament doctrine, but it's crystal clear when Jesus comes and says what he says. And it's the foundation for all that we read about the Christian life in the New Testament and all that we read about sanctification in the New Testament. But I think that we've ignored it because the phrase itself was misused, misapplied, superficially applied to a reality that bears no resemblance to the biblical reality of the new birth.